I guarantee you someone out there right now is saying, not another Ford. Welcome back to the Scale Builders Guild. Thanks again for watching. Today we're taking a first look, run, and review of the new Axial SCX10III Early Bronco. I think that's what they're calling it. This is a SCX10III, and it's a whole new body. And that's part of this story. There is other parts of this story that we are going to cover. But you can't really look at this and not look at this gorgeous Ford Bronco body. This is a topless Ford Bronco, 67 adjacent-ish. It's sort of a mishmash of a few different Broncos, but mainly the 67, 68 kind of model, and there's a lot of really great features to go over with this truck, so let's just jump right into it. There's no time like the present. If you can't tell, I am pretty pumped about this. I'm always excited when a new Axial truck comes out, and especially when it's something as iconic as a Ford Bronco. Speaking of, this is a licensed Ford Bronco, unlike this shirt, which is very much unlicensed. There are a lot of really great molded plastic details, brand new wheels, knockoff lug nuts. There's all kinds of really cool things on here, but let's just start at the top and work our way down. First things first, topless Ford Bronco. This is sort of the cobalt color. Axial's also offering a white one with a blue pinstripe, which looks pretty good as well. Fully molded cage, which looks really good. Nice rigid bit of plastic. There is some give, which you will want, but there is a lot of rigidity that adds to this body by having a cage like this. There are some mounting points up top for an additional set of light bars or light buckets or something that you might be able to put up there. Who knows what Axial's going to offer, but it definitely looks like they've thought about the aftermarket accessories and what people like to do to their trucks by adding some options for additional lights, which is very cool. This whole windshield assembly gets screwed into the cage here, but it also gets screwed in at the top where the wipers have gone into a separate piece of plastic that's sort of hidden behind the roll cage, which is a nice touch. There are some grab handles here and some really nice molded details. The Axial logo is on the rear tailgate here. I'll flip it around so you can get a better look at that. You can see it right there, which is pretty cool. It's also in the running boards along the top sort of like drip rail of the back of the cab here. A full depth interior. So if you've got driver figures, and this is something that actually should be discussed, if you've got driver figures in the 8 to 9 inch range, they're going to look awesome in this interior. It's a big truck. The proportions of it are very large, and it's difficult for me to get a good sort of like full frame look at it here. But what I can tell you from doing some math, and I know that's not always my strongest point, but this math checks out, this body scales to about 1/7.4. You're going to say, well, it says 10th scale on the box, and yes, that's sort of the kind of catch-all for this range of the hobby. I can tell you with some fairly good math that that's correct. And it's probably one of Axial's largest bodies in terms of the scale. And if you go back in time to the late 60s, these Broncos were not big trucks. But they did do a good job of recreating the body overall, albeit way bigger than anything else in Axial's range. So you're going to have to sort of think bigger when you think of getting a driver. And with an interior as good as this one is, you're getting all the plastic molded pedals, a plastic molded steering wheel with some nice like wiper stocks on there too, which is pretty amazing. Some shifters, these nice deep seats, which are molded seats. Those are not Lexan. Those are an additional plastic part that's included in there. So another nice little addition. But really, really nice interior. There isn't a lot of detail in the actual sort of the bed portion of the SUV style body. It is quite glossy as well. I would love to see Axial go that extra mile and dull coat that whole interior before it gets to the consumer, because it is pretty shiny. It'll pick up a lot of dirt. It'll look not great. So I'm definitely going to hit it with some flat clear after I get my initial running video out of the way. Spare tire, functional spare tire included on the back, which is very nice. And now let's talk about these tube doors. These are functional tube doors. There's a body pin holding that in, and those open and close, which is a really nice feature. I think that looks pretty rad. Obviously not functional, but a nice molded air intake on the top of the hood, which definitely adds a little more hot roddy kind of look to this truck. Full molded front grille. Headlights are included, and I think there's even marker lights included on this one as well. I have to double check that. Moving down on the body, these are not Lexan, these are plastic fenders that are attached to the body. Nice outer fender that's going to protect your body in case of it scraping up against a tree or a rock or whatnot. You're going to get a little bit of protection on that Lexan shell with that nice molded in piece. These are new plastic sliders that they've integrated into the body here as well. These are attached to the chassis, and that's sort of the channel that the body sits in. Really nice to see a new design that is, you know, actually meant for the Bronco itself. So I think it looks really, really good. Moving on to the back here, we've got a nice molded rear bumper with some D-ring hooks on there, which is a nice addition. A separate molded license plate holder, which is pretty cool. That says AX Bronco, which I assume is Axial Bronco. Another nice feature here, this molded front bumper here with a little bit of a bull bar on front there. There are more light mounting options on that front bumper, so they've really thought about customizing and making this truck your own. It's really, really nice to see that level of thought and detail going into this truck. Overall, the body itself is really what you notice right away, and it does look fantastic. I think Axial did an incredible job. A few sticking points for me. The rear 3/4. I don't think that it's this straight in real life. I think that there is a bit more of a curve towards the bottom here. It's not fully accurate, and if I'm honest, it is a little flat along the actual profile of the side of the body. I think they could have maybe shrunk the overall width of that body ever so slightly and given this a bit more of a contour along the side, and then it would look a lot more like a Bronco from this era. It's pretty close. So, you know, I'm not like, it's not make or break it for me. It's definitely just one of those things that I noticed and wanted to point out. Regardless, though, it is probably Axial's finest looking body cage combo in a very long time. With all of these extra molded plastic details and these functional tube doors and this really nice deep interior, this is sort of what I was talking about when the SCX10III really first came out. This style of chassis is going to give you all kinds of room to build out a really great interior and to have a full depth interior. With the motor placed up front and the low center of gravity transfer case, it just really makes for a huge space to fill with a really nice interior, and Axial knocked it out of the park in that regard. Just like the Gladiator and the JL before it, the body clips are hidden, so you don't ruin this beautiful body with a bunch of clips and posts hanging out of the top. It's nice and clean. Falcon Wild Peak MTs, these are a tire, or at least the license that Axial has used a number of times before. I think this is a new tire, though. It definitely doesn't seem to be the same height as some of the other ones. It says 4.7, so maybe it is. Maybe I'm just sort of like blown away by the size of the Bronco body that they chose to go with, and these tires are actually dwarfing because of that size of the body. Regardless, nice looking beadlock wheel, sort of this satin chrome, which I really, really like, and these knockoff hubs are really super cool. They are on there pretty good. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it hides a real nut underneath, which is pretty awesome. But nice detail on these pieces. I'm actually pretty chuffed about those wheels. I think they're pretty period correct. I love the knockoff hubs. I think that is just a nice little cool scale addition and just adds to the overall look of the truck. One of the other main differences between this and the previous SCX10III, be it the JL or the Gladiator, this Bronco comes with the straight axle conversion kit already included, installed from the factory, ready to run. So you've got your straight axles, offset front pumpkin, which I think looks amazing, and a similar straight axle in the rear. So no portal axles, and I'm more than fine with that. I think a good trail truck doesn't need portal axles. I understand why other manufacturers have done it. I even understand why Axial did it. That said, I seem to be, I don't know, old, or maybe purist, whatever you want to call it. I like a straight axle on a truck, and I think that it just adds a proper dimension and a lot more scale realism than a portal. So really nice to see that Axial has included that on this RTR. And since we're talking about the chassis, let's get the body off, and we'll go over some of the changes that Axial's made to the SCX10III since its initial release. Quick note, the body itself is pretty rigid. Even though it is Lexan, there's a lot of stuff going on in there to keep everything in check. You've got your body posts which mount into the rear cage, which is pretty cool. Good way of doing that. Look at how sleek that is under there, though. That's pretty cool. Looks good. There's also a little radiator fan there. You will never see that, but it's cool that they included it nonetheless. All right, let's put that body aside for a second and talk about this chassis. So it is an SCX10III RTR. You get a 35-turn dynamite motor. There's standard metal geared servo that comes in all of the other RTRs. The Spectrum Firma 40 amp smart ESC and receiver combo, which I have reviewed. I'll be sure to put a link right up here so you can check out that review of the Smart Firma 40. I actually really like this receiver ESC combo. It doesn't take up a lot of space, and you're saving yourself a receiver for another build. So all in all, if you are a smart Spectrum user, you've got a DX5C, or you've got any of the modern smart capable transmitters, you can bind directly to this. So 12.3 inch wheelbase. The way it comes set up from the factory, you've got servo for dig. So dig is included. A lot of people may not be fans of dig. I like it. I've used it in a bunch of my other trucks, and I do find it quite useful, especially in a comp situation. Probably less useful in a trail truck, but it does have its advantages for sure. The small difference between first and second in the 2-speed option on this transmission isn't deep enough for me to consider putting a 2-speed into it, so I'll probably just keep it set up for dig. I think that's probably the best case scenario for me. One of the other major changes to the chassis, of course, all of these inner fenders are different. They are not the same as the ones that are on the JL or the Gladiator, so they will not fit that body. This is specific to the Bronco. I'm really glad that they made a set of inner fenders for this truck. I think it would have been a huge mistake if they hadn't done that. So kudos to Axial for including. I know it's not cheap to tool up and manufacture a whole different set of inner fenders, but I definitely think it was worth it. So good stuff there. They do also include mounting points for rock lights if that's something that you want to include as well. Another big change, different motor. This is a 5-liter motor. It looks more like a Ford motor, I presume, which makes a lot of sense because this is a Ford. So nice to see a different motor there. I do wish that there was a way to see it easier than taking the whole body off. Maybe on the next go around we'll see an Axial truck with an opening hood. Who knows? Stranger things have happened. Moving forward, the steering servo, of course, is mounted underneath this motor here, but what we've got now included right up front here is a mount for a servo winch. I think a lot of people were asking for this, myself included, so really happy to see that on this truck. Really nice, easy place to mount that, and if you take off this license plate, it does reveal a fair lead, or at least a hole for a fair lead right on the front there. So nice little addition there, makes a big difference in the aftermarket and some of the parts you could add to this truck. If you are interested in a more complete review of the SCX10III chassis, by all means, check out this video right up here. I go over the truck in exhaustive detail because I was one of the first people to see the truck and to build the truck. So I've got a pretty good handle on all of the stuff that went into it. And if you've got any questions or you've got any comments, be sure to put them down below. You know I love reading through your feedback, and I try to answer as many of those comments as I can. And if you're enjoying this video, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, ring that notification bell so you get updates anytime there's a new video from the Scale Builders Guild. And hey, if you don't like this video, hit the dislike button. It's just as effective for me to know who likes it and who doesn't. Moving on, one final big change to the chassis, and this one is a killer new upgrade. They have changed the panhard mount to metal. On the original SCX10III, the panhard mount was plastic, and that was a huge source of breakage for a lot of people. Not cool. Now, you don't have to buy an additional upgrade, so now all the components for steering are going to be a lot more robust. Definitely going to hold up a lot better than that plastic one did, that's for sure. And just like iterations before, all metal links. Really great to see these nice beefy links. I do wish that the rod ends were a little more profiled so they didn't have this sort of hex pattern, and I'm sure that's just for ease of assembly, but I don't like them like that. I wish those things weren't there. Now, one of the things about the straight axle kit that I'm not a fan of, and this should be mentioned, or when Axial designed the straight axle kit, they designed it to have as much up travel as the Portal kit did. So to achieve that, they've changed out the shocks from 90 millimeters to 100 millimeters, and it does keep the same amount of up travel that you would be familiar with in an SCX10III Jeep JL or Gladiator. But the disadvantage here is that it does raise up the entire chassis quite a bit. You're going to get a much higher center of gravity because of it. Oh, I did find it to be a lot easier to get the body on this truck too. I'm not sure if that's just a function of the way they've redesigned the inner fenders, but everything seems to clip into place a little bit better. But as you can see, it does sit quite high, and that's just sort of its natural resting height there. I do find that it is a bit too high for a Bronco of this era. It does kind of offer a little too much up travel, if I'm honest. And one of the first things I'm going to do after its stock run is swap out those 100 mil shocks for 90 mil shocks. I think it's going to make a dramatic improvement in its center of gravity, its performance on the trail, and after seeing Greg's video over at RC Driver, I definitely recommend that you watch his review as well. There's some good counterpoints in there. I'm thinking that that's one of the major points that I think a lot of people are going to want to change right away. It'll also, by sort of proxy of changing those shocks out, just lower the ride height a little bit. And I think, to me, this already looks a lot better over that. I just think that it's just sitting a little too high for my liking, especially just so much clearance between the tire and the fender. It just doesn't look right to me. So that's definitely one thing I'm going to look at. I've done it on my SCX10III JL, so I know it can be done, and it doesn't affect performance really for me in any way. You do lose a little bit of up travel, but I don't know. I think the benefits far outweigh the setbacks. So definitely something to consider when you're looking at this RTR. Let's talk about some of the other things that Axial includes in the package. You will get a Spectrum DX3, which I think is a pretty decent RTR radio. It is a 3-channel radio, obviously because this truck has dig, so you will want that. Definitely is easier to drive one-handed with the handy thumb stick that's included. If you have smart batteries, it will show your battery level right here on the display, which is great. But always, I like this radio. I think they did a pretty decent job with this one, for sure. In addition to the radio, you will get batteries for that radio, so you can run it right away. They also include the receiver box. And this is if you upgrade or change out that ESC receiver combo, get yourself a separate receiver that isn't probably waterproof. They do give you a nice sealable waterproof container that can be mounted on the chassis. A T-wrench, which I didn't know I needed. I feel like Horizon got a little bit wise to the fact that people will be changing out that dig servo or shift servo, whatever you end up using it for, and they now include all the parts to set up another servo. They don't give you another servo, mind you, but they do give you all the parts required, including that little servo saver horn thing that is sort of required. So Now it's all in one package, which is really great. Nice to have that as an addition. There is also a sticker sheet included with some bumper stickers on there and some alternative stripes and other stickers there that, you know, you can customize it if that's your bag, baby. Also included in that bag, baby, are some traditional body posts. If you end up going with a different body and you just need regular everyday body posts, they got you covered there too. There's also a very thick manual here featuring lots of really super interesting stuff that you should definitely read through if you're a beginner. All kinds of things to help you get started with your new Bronco. It's a little thing, but it's a good thing. The wires for the LED lights are long enough that you can take the body off and set the body aside and still have them plugged in. I think that's, you know, it's so minor, it's such a minor little thing, but it's that attention to detail that strikes me as something they actually thought about. There's nothing quite as cool to me as the front clip of a Bronco. I just love those marker lights and headlights. I think that's just such a sick look. I think that looks really good. And just so you can see it, there's your tail lights as well. Everything's all nicely lit up, good quality LEDs in there. Definitely an imposing stance. So I think we'll definitely follow this up with a full separate running video. There has been some running video throughout this. You get a good idea of its performance out of the box. I do think that this body style is just so good looking. I can't wait to find a driver appropriately sized to fit in this interior, finish off some of the details here, and make a few changes to make this truck even better. But I am really happy to see Axial come out with a straight axled RTR with a really unique body style, something that we haven't seen in a long time, and something that I think is very iconic. I think they've done an excellent job of capturing some great details here, and really, they've taken the SCX10III to that next level, and I'm really glad to see that. I think this is going to be a very popular release, and I hope that you've enjoyed my first look and run and review of the Ford Bronco from Axial. That's going to do it. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.